All right, guys. So, just to quickly introduce myself, I'm Jason Biondo, the founder, really the founder and CEO of Trekeffect,
Hmm.
and I've been doing travel blogging really for the past 10 years. That's sort of the quick rundown of me. I'd love to hear real quickly about your backgrounds. What do you guys do professionally? Are you guys just full-time travel bloggers? Tell me a little bit
Sure.
about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, really appreciate you taking the time to kind of chat with us, and obviously to chat about the blog as well. We've been together for about 11 years now. I'm originally from Nashville, Tennessee. Tracy's originally from Detroit, Michigan. And so we met in Nashville. Currently, I am a manager for a neurosurgical consulting agency, actually, by day. And
Yeah, yeah.
Tracy is actually a
And
data.
database analyst by day.
So definitely not travel
No.
related, but
Sure.
so we had done some traveling, I think, before we got together. And that really accelerated, I think, after being together and really discovering, a love for somebody that we had a shared passion with, and those kind of things. And so decided to take a leap and to, knock off some things on our bucket list. And really, I think
Started with London.
it did, yeah. Started with London. That was the first international trip that we had gone on together. And the blog itself happened rather accidentally. I think we live in South Florida, just a little bit about where we're at now, in Fort Lauderdale, so about 25 miles north of Miami. And we were at Max Club Deuce, it's this bar down kind of in central Miami that has been on a lot of the popular television shows that like Anthony Bourdain has done. And I just sent out this tweet from my professional account, like, "Hey, thanks at Bourdain." And one of the guys on the show, his Moscow show, Zamir Gata, responded like, "Oh yeah, you guys look great." And I don't know, for whatever reason, we decided, hey, let's just start writing about the places that we go, and it just sort of grew from there.
Wow, yeah, that sounds great. I actually went when I was going to college. I spent my first 2 years at the University of Tampa, so I've definitely spent my time down in Florida. So
Nice.
Tampa's a cool city, a lot of fun, a lot of fun.
sure is. Yeah, yeah. No, I quickly learned that when I arrived. Uh, awesome, guys. Okay, so yeah, no, it's just interesting to hear that your background, your professional backgrounds are quite different than the blog itself, and then the passion that sort of drives through that. So that's always interesting to hear.
Sure.
And how often do you guys, really get to travel? And what are some of your best experiences?
Yeah.
Well, we typically try to travel as much as possible, even if it's short trips, but we do at least two big trips a year
Yep.
when we get a chance. Probably I'm wearing the Peru shirt. My favorite experience, probably Justin's too, was our trip to Peru. We visited Lima, Machu Picchu, Ollantaytambo, and all these ancient cities that we had dreamed about seeing for so long. And in real life, it's even more amazing than can be described in any book or History Channel program. So it was really amazing.
Yeah. And one of the things that we love about living in South Florida is that it does afford us the opportunity where, we're next to a large international airport. So we're able to take weekends and to, make it to Colombia and do a lot of different things that I think, maybe if we lived in more of a landlocked location that was further away from an airport, that we wouldn't be able to do that. But yeah, I would say typically we normally two trips that are, maybe 2 weeks long per year, with some shorter trips kind of scattered about, and
Both work full-time jobs, so
Yeah.
that doesn't impede on travel.
Yeah, yeah. No, of course. Obviously, it's a
with American PTO policies. So yeah.
right. Of course, it's yeah. No, I can definitely relate and understand that. And can you kind of walk me through, because if I don't know how familiar you guys are with Trekeffect, but we're really a travel planning platform
Right.
to try to encourage really travel bloggers like yourselves and other bloggers as well to join the platform and then sell their itineraries on the platform and
Sure.
sell their past experiences as well to other travelers, so that they can essentially kind of live vicariously through you guys. So can you just kind of walk through what the process is in terms of how you go about planning your trips, and how do you make sure that the trips you go on are the best possible trips that you can have?
Yeah.
Good question.
So I guess I'll go ahead and start us off and just so there are, and I say a few. There's really one website that we'll use to, if we're going to kind of aggregate things together. So we do use a website called Trip Masters that helps us to plan some things. And it's we found it to be a really reputable site. We did a full review on Trip Masters. That
Great ease of use.
That's it's very, very cost efficient. We're not like a paid partner of Trip Masters or anything. It's just something we've used and like. But typically when we're booking things independently, and we've gotten to a point where I think as we travel more and more, and you've knocked out, you knock out a London and a Rome and a Paris and the kind of things that people want to do. Now you're starting to talk about going to places where maybe it's a little more difficult to get there, and the itineraries are a little more disjointed. So you have to find ways to do that. We'd like to pick sort of one place that you might almost call it like an international port, where we'll fly into. A lot of day trips.
Yeah.
We try and find areas where it's really packed with, maybe within 4 or 5 hours. Can we take a train ride to go see something else that we want? Can we, rent a car and see something that's within the area? We like to, probably 75% of our travels are across Europe. That's a great continent to travel a lot via train. And obviously, if you can take a car and you're not too bad with driving on the wrong side of the road, then that's a different kind of thing. So
how long does that process of, if you're taking 2 big trips a year,
Sure.
how extensive is the planning? Because what I found is that, it takes a lot of work, because sometimes it takes people weeks or months to try to, put all this information together. And I just wanted to know, is that something you guys are experiencing, or do you know some secrets about how to short that? Just time.
Yeah, so I would say that normally Tracy is the one that kicks things off. She's the organized traveler. And on the first couple of trips, I'm like, let's just take a bag of stuff and we'll figure it out and we'll be fine. But she's really good and organized, I think, at creating lists. I think lists are huge. I think you always want to. You have a couple of tried and true things that once you've traveled quite a bit, it sort of becomes automatic, like money belts, for example. We constantly have a money belt on us to, essentially protect passports and wallets and just basic things like that.
Also, planning on how to get around each city that you're traveling to.
Yeah.
I think what we do is we know where we're going to go. We know which countries and cities we're going to go to, and then we make a plan of how to. Is there an underground? Is there some sort of bus system, or the taxis available? And then we pre-plan that ahead of time so that we're not stuck in the middle of somewhere wasting time, or not sure how we're going to get from point A to point B. So a lot of it is transportation.
Yeah, that's a great point. Transportation really is huge, because if you haven't planned ahead, and a lot of these cities may offer some sort of discounted city cards or Metro Transit type of cards, those kind of things will save you a lot of money. Also, time is money. So if there are museums you want to hit, so a couple of months ago we went to Florence, you would find yourself probably sitting an hour, in line for a few hours trying to get in to see the David. We contacted the museum ahead of time, and for I think like an extra €5 a piece, got to skip the line thing. So that saved us hours, right?
Yeah.
So it's really like, okay, how do we make the most of the time we have?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's information like that, like what you guys just said, that I couldn't say any better, because what Trekeffect does, right, is we sell itineraries or experiences that that other travelers like yourself have taken. And sometimes a lot of the feedback is, oh, why would I need this? Or like, what value could this provide me?
Like, well, we can tell
what you guys just did basically could save somebody hours, and not only hours in the day, but hours of like, oh, if I only knew that one thing, I could have just skipped the line and saved myself, hours on end right there.
Absolutely.
And that's great to that's just great to hear.
But the kind of thing that you guys are doing, I mean, you're 100% right. People might consider that it's maybe not the most pertinent thing, and you might have to mind us here. Our little travel cat is running around our feet. I think he wants an interview. So if he makes a cameo, his name is Taylor, and you'll have a chance to meet him. So, you know, people don't realize how important that is until they're in a city. They have a limited amount of time. They're trying to do a day trip. They've got a handful of things that they want to knock off, and then they're standing in line for 4 hours at the Uffizi Gallery.
Right.
A perfect example would be actually, I know a lot of people when they go to Rome go to the Vatican. We had never really considered how long the line might be there. We got to skip. No, it wasn't skip the line. We got an early entry, so we got in the first group around 7 a.m. Well, by the time we walked around the museum for a few hours, by the time we got out, there was a queue probably almost a mile long around the building. It was unbelievable, and it was still the morning. So that would be one of our biggest tips is anywhere you go to a city with a museum or anything, you can either skip the line or do an early entry. It's worth the extra few euros or dollars or whatever currency that it is to do it.
Right. Okay, that's great, guys. Awesome feedback so far. Now, just to kind of open this up and make this a little bit more more fun in the sense that I want to hear like what's on your bucket list, out of places that are coming up on the radar.
Absolutely. You want to go first?
Well, and our next trip is we're going back to Mexico. We're going back to Valladolid and Yucatan to explore the history there. We went last year and didn't get to see all we wanted to see, so we're going back. It's beautiful there. But the bucket list, we have a lot of stuff on that one. I think next would be for me. It would be the Galapagos Islands.
Yeah,
that's my.
And at the end of this year, we're looking at
one of them.
Most likely. So Tracy's heritage is Scottish. And we've been all around the UK, and somehow we've missed going to Scotland. So we're actually going to do our 10-year vow renewal just outside of Edinburgh in a place where her family originally came from, in a place called Stirling. And so we're going to do a 10-year vow renewal there. That's something we've always wanted to do. My ancestry is more Scandinavian. So, I'm looking forward to going to Norway and spending some time in the fjords, which is something we haven't had an opportunity to do. And then, I think really there are some challenges that we want to do, just in terms of, maybe diving, off the coast of Iceland and the continental divide and doing some things like that. So, couple of things on the list, I guess.
There's a lot of things on the list.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's living. That's great to hear. It's always interesting because everybody's kind of got a different bucket list, right? As to sort of what they want to do or in the order at which they want to do it. So, really, really awesome. Now, just so I can also help the other travelers that are going to be watching this video, I want to know from you guys, what do you feel is like the biggest concern when you travel? And what do you think, people should be aware of or watch out for?
We'll probably go the same direction with this.
Well, one of the biggest things that is a concern when we travel is language barrier.
Mm-hmm.
That's not so. It's not exactly a safety concern, but it can be if you find yourself in a position where you can't communicate. So we tend to learn enough of the language, whichever country we're going to be able to get around and feel safe with wherever we're going. But other than that, like we mentioned the money belts. Safety is a big key wherever you go. I mean, even in Paris, we were outside the Louvre, and before you even get to the door to go down the escalator, there's a sign that says "Beware of pickpocketing." And I thought, of all places, the Louvre would be the last place I'd need a sign at the door that says "Beware of pickpocketing." So you just have to be, leery of your surroundings and do a little research beforehand to see, where you're going to be going exactly.
Yeah. I would have gone the exact same direction. I mean, I think that really those things play hand in hand, communication and safety. And I think that those are the things that keep people from traveling, probably more than any other factors, especially if you, it's one thing as an American maybe to go to London for the first time or to go somewhere where the accent's different, but you can still communicate and do all the things that you need to do. But, the first time that maybe you're in Asia or in South America, and you're maybe in, a small village in Peru, do you know enough to, ask for directions or
Right,
to
right.
ask
The basics.
where the
Mhm.
restroom is and those
Right.
kind of things. And it's really not as hard, I think, as what people might think it is. And that's actually one of the initiatives with the website, is to just create some language learning guides that are short, things that people can take with them, that are mobile, so that they can feel comfortable no matter where they're at, and to be able to communicate efficiently.
No, it was kind of interesting. You basically, jumped right into my next question, which was you kind of shortcut it, but because what I've found, right? Because I do a ton of research on the travel industry constantly. It's like
Sure.
it's my passion, right? So I'm in it all the time. In the sense, what I found is that people really are afraid to travel. Like, it's not so much that they don't want to;
Mhm.
it's they're afraid of, like, well, boy, I don't know what I'm gonna do when I get there, and oh boy,
Mhm.
what if something goes wrong, or I don't know the language, or I don't know all these, these sort of what if scenarios, right? That come up. So it's kind of interesting that you went right to that. Um, yeah, I guess, is there any other sort of nugget of information that you guys feel,
I have one.
when you're talking to, anybody that might approach you guys? Is there any specific nugget, like, hey, if I'm doing this, or if I'm going this place, what do I really like? What's the one thing that they should know?
Yeah.
Well, I would say one tip that I would give it to anybody who's traveling internationally would be to make sure that you have an emailed copy of your passport that's legible, that you've emailed to yourself or to somebody else.
Mhm.
Because if anything happens to that, you're obviously going to have to go to some sort of embassy, or
Yeah.
to get it replaced, which is kind of a big deal when you're in a foreign country. But if you have a backup that is online and it is accessible from anywhere, then it can save you a lot of time. It happened to some of my parents' friends, and they didn't do that, and it was a huge hassle. They were actually in Paris.
Wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, their luggage got stolen. They made the mistake of putting their passports in their luggage. That's another one. Don't put your passports in your luggage. Keep them in money belts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a good point. I would say, when you stole my idea. No, I would say cash is king when you travel. It's obviously it's perfectly convenient, I think, in most places, to be able to use debit cards and bank cards and those kind of things. But there are going to be moments and situations where you're going to need currency that they use locally. I mean, when we were in the Yucatan Peninsula last year, I can think of it where it just said, we'll get into Valladolid and we'll exchange cash when we get there. Well, there were tolls and we didn't have any pesos with us. And this was not like, okay, we'll just let you go. It was, you're going to have to pull over here and negotiate with one of the kind police officers, and maybe he'll let you through and maybe not. And it
Wow.
was kind of stressful a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm sure it
With
would
an
be
armed guard in the middle of the jungle.
Yeah.
But
They were really nice about it.
yeah,
They were
absolutely.
nice.
So take care of that if you can, at least to a
Yeah.
point where you would feel comfortable for at least 24 hours before you get on the flight to go where you're at. Now, with that being said, try not to exchange at the airport if at all possible, because you're going to pay just a ridiculous rate. So either go to your local bank, typically,
Yeah.
before you take off, will give you a better exchange rate. You'll get just crushed with the exchange fees if you go to one of the desks or the kiosks actually in the airport. So yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that was great. Thank you for the quick interview. And this will be going up on our blog. And just so everybody else knows, all the other visitors, where can they find you? How can they learn more about your blog and more about you guys?
Sure, absolutely. So the blog can be found at acouplefortheroad.com. That's for theroad.com. We're on social media at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at acouple4 the road, is the backsplash or backslash on all of those. And so yeah, we really appreciate the time coming on here to chat with you and to answer a few questions. And
Hopefully we can help some people out there in the
absolutely.
travel sphere.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's what we're all about. Okay, well, thank you guys.